light on behavioral drivers for prevention and management of anemia.
I'm here essentially to reflect upon some of the very basics of social and behavior change, particularly how we engage with audience and how we understand our audience. And for the lack of a simpler phrase, I'm going to use audience in place of target group, right? And we all know, and Anushka and Saurav has already talked about how despite having such great programs in the area of nutrition, we've made substantial progress in addressing nutrition challenges. We have strong platforms, convergence platforms. We have a huge frontline force. We have a distribution system. All of that is working well, both at the national level, at the state level. But despite all of this effort, anemia continues to exist, not just exist, but actually thrive in our country. And a lot of what they talked about is how awareness is essentially not an indicator of behavior change, right? A lot of the work that is going in is actually in the sphere of awareness generation, and which is not really translating into the behavior change that we are looking for, right? So in my presentation, I'm essentially going to explore why awareness alone cannot translate into behavior change, and how we can actually move to behavior change by supplementing awareness with several other facets of social and behavior change, right? So the statistics in front of you are nothing new, right? These are, we all know that roughly half of the vulnerable population, as we like to call it, whether it's women, pregnant women, particularly lactating mothers, children, adolescent girls, they are anemic. More than half of them are anemic. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is it because people do not know the importance of good nutrition or its impact on their health? Uh, I wanted to bring the case of the programs at the very outset, because we all are working some way, directly, indirectly, through these programs, right? Nutrition related programs in our country. Now, awareness generation is a big part of it. So we all know that people are getting the message of what is anemia and how to prevent it. But in most cases, awareness alone is not the issue, right? And through the next few slides, I'm going to take you through these audience profiles, or essentially representation of people that we meet, that we encounter on a daily basis during our field visits, and what challenges do they face vis-a-vis some of the messages that we try to deliver through our flagship programs on nutrition. So for example, yeah, we have Rekha here, who's about 6 months pregnant, and she obviously, attends her antenatal visits. She's in touch with the ASHA worker. She has access to the IFA tablets. She has been counseled on dietary diversity, iron-rich food, all of that. So essentially, everything is working well on paper. But despite all of these services being made accessible to her, there are several challenges. She is still not consuming the IFA tablet on a regular basis. Why does that happen? So you see, there is a whole list of challenges that I've sort of summarized there. These are pretty common, and I think Anushka and Saurav have already talked about them, so I'll not get into the details of it. But the idea is that here, none of these issues are actually around access or knowledge, right? These are essentially myths, misconceptions. Some are norms related, some are more about family context, some are about habits and convenience, right? And then we have another important stakeholder, which of course we have touched upon through our flagship programs. Next slide, please. And she's essentially the gatekeeper of the household, as we like to call it, right? The mother-in-law. Now, Kamala Devi here represents a powerful influence in nutrition programs. In our Indian households, particularly, mother in laws essentially decide who eats what, how much, what time, all of that. So essentially, she is the key gatekeeper there. And we don't want to believe, I mean, we'd like to believe that she comes from a place of care. None of our beliefs are obviously malicious. They are rooted in care and experience, but unintentionally they are removing many iron rich foods in the diet, particularly of young girls and pregnant women, or women in general in her family, including herself, right? Now, while nutrition programs provide counseling on diet diversity, at the household level, that counseling does not really translate into behavior change. Why? Because we have gatekeepers like Kamla Devi who are sort of dictating what should be eaten versus what should not be eaten. Again, there are some examples in front of you of what she considers to be good versus what she considers to be bad, right? Next slide. Now we have Raja, who is essentially the economic pillar of the family, right? Now, as men of the household, or husbands, or brothers, fathers, they often get to control critical household decisions around nutrition, particularly. They decide how much and what food needs to be purchased and when healthcare is sought, right? So, a lot many times there will be beliefs like, my wife is looking absolutely fine. Why does she need to pop a pill? Exactly what Anushka said, that if everything is going fine, then ye fizul ki ye goli lene ki kya zarurat hai, right? And also that mindset that this kind of nutrition, or what we are habitual of consuming, has been practiced for over generations. Why do we need to change it now? Abhi ऐसा क्या हो रहा है जिसकी वजह से हमें अलग से कुछ ऐड करने की जरूरत है, या अपने खाने में कुछ अलग बनाने की जरूरत है, right? So these are some of the kind of sort of barriers, behavioral barriers, that we often get to encounter on ground when we are meeting our various audience groups. Right? And finally, we have, next slide, Pooja, who's a teenage girl. And like Anushka pointed out, this is a completely different group of people that we are engaging through our anemia prevention programs, our nutrition programs, right? Now, while we are trying to reach them through the weekly iron and folic acid supplementation program, awareness generation programs, and so on, but for them, the behavioral barrier is completely different. There is a normalization of fatigue or feeling tired. It is considered a part of growing up, right? So if you're growing up, because you're seeing these bodily changes, of course, you are not only observing these changes, but this is all part of growing up. So your body is going to show these kind of symptoms, right? So whether it's fatigue, whether it's dizziness, whether it's difficulty in concentrating, all of this is seen as part of growing up, essentially trying to normalize the experience of the anemia experience, essentially, right? And then there are also issues around peer influence, where, let's say, if one girl says that these IFA tablets, they increase the menstrual bleeding, or they cause some kind of a digestive issue, stomach pain, or consuming a heavy diet, as they call it, can make you gain weight. So that has a lot of traction among teenage girls, who are anyway very conscious of the way they look, and the changes that they undergo. Next slide. So essentially, what we are trying to say here is that we often assume that a lot of times people, just because they are aware of a health issue, they will automatically start to working on their behavior, or they'll change their behavior instantly, right? It doesn't work like that in reality. Awareness is only the first step in a much longer behavior change journey, right? We need to see the different stages of behavior change. It's not something that can happen overnight, or just by giving a simple message that consume IFA tablet and anemia will be gone in a few months. No, it doesn't work like that. And we need to take into account the past experiences of what happened the last time a pregnant woman took an IFA tablet. I saw the chat box and there was a question around how do we deal with actual symptoms of consuming IFA tablets, right? So what was the experience? Was there a side effect? Was there a negative experience? What are the social norms, any family traditions or community beliefs, which often carry more weight than the counseling session held by a, let's say, an ASHA worker or an ANM or an Anganwadi worker? And then also the risk perception, when, for example, fatigue or weakness feels normal, young girls like Pooja may actually not see it as anemia at all, or as something that is harmful for their body. They're still viewing it as something that's part of growing up. And then finally, convenience and daily routines. People tend to follow habits that easily fit into their everyday lives, rather than doing something which feels like an anomaly, which feels like something different. And understanding all of these factors or facets of behavior change can help us move through different stages and understand our audiences better. Next slide. Now, the real problem essentially is that we are treating everyone as the same audience, right? We feel that one size will fit everyone, but that's not the case. Many nutrition programs, we often group people broadly or our audience broadly as pregnant women, adolescent girls, or mothers, or lactating mothers. But within these groups, also, I'm not saying this is a wrong way of grouping our audience segments, but even within these segments, there are several sub segments that we need to explore and identify at what level of readiness they are vis-a-vis the behavior we'd ideally like them to practice, right? For example, some women may be scared or afraid of the side effects of IFA tablets, or some adolescents, like I said, do not perceive anemia as a threat at all. They feel that we are young and nothing can happen to us at this point, right? Next slide. So, like I said earlier, one size does not fit all, and we obviously need to see our audience through the different stages of behavior change, right? So, starting off with the first stage itself, where uh, people are not aware or they are not concerned about that particular problem, in this case, anemia, right? In the next stage, of behavior change, there will be people who are aware of the problem but they are hesitant in adopting the behavior. And then further up as we go, there will be people who are considering, they have the intention, they are considering making the change, but they need that subtle push. Some have already tried the behavior, but it didn't work for them, so they may actually come down, they may come back to the second step. And then there are those who are not only practicing that behavior, they are fully aware of its benefits. And further up as we go, the it's not given in this particular infographic, but there are also advocates who have not only practiced the behavior, but they see the benefits and they advocate it to others and want them to sort of adopt this particular behavior. So they essentially become the champions who we can enroll as part of our programs, right? Next slide. Now, in the context of anemia, particularly here, I've taken an example of IFA tablets, right? So when we sort of categorize, let's say, pregnant women and their uptake of IFA tablets, some women will be at the pre-contemplation stage where they are not aware of anemia at all, although it's rare given the penetration of our programs these days. But they may be still ignorant or may not have the full set of information or guidance around what anemia is, what causes it, right? And what needs to be done about it. Next, as we go, there is contemplation, which means that they are aware of the IFA, but they do not take them regularly. And the next is willing to take, but obviously they face barriers. Some of the barriers that Rekha, the profile that I shared with you, she's worried about digestive issues. She feels that her stomach is going to feel heavy, the baby will be too big, all kinds of myths and misconceptions. And then, as we go up, you can see that eventually we reach a point in steps to behavior change where we would ideally like to see champions who have practiced, who've used IFA tablets themselves and have seen the benefits of it, and now are inviting others to practice it. So essentially, they are champions, right? And at each step of these changes, what we notice is that there needs to be a different or a more customized approach to changing behaviors, right? Our messaging needs to be different, our strategy, our interventions need to be different, right? So in for example, the pre-contemplation stage, what works here or the message that works here will not work for someone who's, let's say, at the third or the fourth stage of the steps to behavior change, right? Similarly, just saying that consume IFA tablet, it's good for you, that's not going to work for everyone on these different steps to behavior change, right? Somebody may need a gentle push, a gentle nudge, while somebody may need a full counseling session, while somebody else may not know where to access nutritious food from or IFA tablets, although it's rare now. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that we need to recognize and further segment our audience into these groups, which truly help us understand where they stand vis-a-vis the steps to behavior change and the challenges that they are encountering in adopting that particular behavior. Next slide. Now, here, in addition to not only looking at where they are in terms of the steps to behavior change, we also want to make sure that we are not only grouping our audience groups into these socio demographic kind of segments or profiles, but also taking into account the deeper psychographic factors, like what are their needs, what are their concerns, what are their aspirations with regards to, let's say, the entire pregnancy journey, right? Here I'm taking the example of a pregnant woman, or let's say even a lactating mother. What's her aspiration with regards to her journey as a new mother, right? What activities do they engage in? What is their attitude towards a certain behavior or a practice that we are encouraging them to adopt? Even their sources of information, the community communication channels, whether they like to listen to the radio or they like using a mobile app, or is it somebody else in the family who they really trust, or is it a doctor? It could be anyone. The idea is that we need to make sure that we move, in addition to using social demographic profile, we also sort of include these psychographic factors to make it a more robust a profile of people who we are trying to help adopt this particular behavior. Next slide. Now, how we segment our audience conventionally versus how we should ideally segment them basis what I just shared with you, right? So, conventional segmentation, in our programs, we often use or we segment our audience basis age, gender, whether they reside in a rural versus an urban setup, their occupation, their education level, and so on. But behavior is essentially, like I said, driven by psychographic factors, right? So here you can see that while we are not running away from using those social demographics, we are also using psychographic segmentation, like pregnant women who are afraid of IFA side effects, new mothers who fed pre-lacteal feed, or adolescent girls who were influenced by peers to adopt a certain practice which is counterproductive or counterintuitive to what we are asking them to do, and husbands who question the use of IFA medication only for sick, right? So, I mean, these are all common behaviors and common barriers, but we don't necessarily use them while we are exploring or sort of segmenting our audience groups. Now, next slide. One of the other critical components of segmenting audiences, you may ask, why do we actually need to segment them into these really small, these really small segments, right? The answer to this is that obviously we all know that we have limited time and resources. We would want to create sustainable behavior change, right? Programs have limited time, resources, money, HR, all of that is limited in nature. So it's not possible to reach everyone in the same way. And similarly, there needs to be a balance or a trade off between how many people we want to reach versus how much time we want to reach them, how many times we want to reach them, right? So behavior change needs time and follow up. So we need to be cognizant of who needs more attention, right? Who do we need to really target as part of our program. And then people have different information needs. Not everyone needs that same message we are giving to, let's say, somebody who's completely ignorant about anemia, right? So we need to make sure that we understand our audience in a way that we are able to respond to their unique challenges. And finally, there are different values and preferences. How we even package or brand our communication messages, our behavioral interventions, that needs to be packaged in a way that appeals to the target audience, right? And of course, keeping in mind that the beliefs and experiences, habits, convenience of adopting these behaviors is very different across the different groups or segments of people we are trying to approach, right? So, essentially, one size does not fit all, is what I'm trying to say here over and over again. Next slide. Now, here again, I don't think I need to really say much about this slide. As you can see, these are essentially two women, both of the same age group, both are pregnant about 7 months. But they obviously are very different from one another. Now, when we are designing our programs, what we do is we come up with a set of messages which are looking more at a demographic profile of our audience group, in this case pregnant women, right? So pregnant women do not form a single audience. Their doubts, realities, where they live, what their sources of information, who they reach out to clarify their doubts will be very different, right? For example, a rural pregnant woman's concern are often shaped by, let's say, family norms or traditional beliefs, or what her mother-in-law says or what her husband says. Whereas an urban pregnant woman's concerns may come from information overload, right? So do I really need supplements if I eat well? Or she may actually prefer talking to a private practitioner than, let's say, going to a government setup. So their let's say challenges are very, very different from one another. So one size will not fit both of them, right? So even though demographically speaking they are very similar, but psychographically they are very, very different. Next slide. So anemia, I think Saurav had already pointed this particular issue, that while anemia is a biological health issue, it's not only a biological or health issue, right? We need to view it in the context of nutrition, gender norms, education levels, and the family practices. All of that come into play when we are trying to address anemia. Now, in addition to distribution of, let's say, IFA tablets or counseling, we need to also analyze the different segments within our audience groups, the norms they are facing, their ground realities, what are they habitual of, and how can we break that habit? It's not very easy, right? So all of these factors essentially determine the health issue of anemia, as we like to call it, but our approaches need to differ. And finally, next slide. Segmenting audience, as takeaways, I would say that segmenting audiences meaningfully is very, very critical, right? I've said this numerous times in my presentation today, but I would like to say it one last time again because it's so, so critical, that audiences are already segmented by life stage, their occupation, their economics, their education level, all of that, right? As pregnant women, adolescents, mothers, fathers, all of that. But while this provides a good starting point, it obviously may not be enough for us to understand our audience well enough to design interventions that are truly effective, right? So we want to make sure that we see people where they are in their journey to behavior change, right? We need to look beyond awareness, right? There has been a significant effort through the multiple nutrition programs in our country around raising awareness, which is great. It's doing well. But awareness, while it is much higher right now with regards to anemia, behavior change will only happen if we address norms, habits, and lived experiences. And considering the household context, the ground realities of our audiences is also very, very critical. The platforms that they already engage in through antenatal care and frontline workers, community based platforms are great, but these are critical entry points, and we need to obviously incorporate more sort of the household context into this entire story, in this entire journey. And then addressing real barriers and sustained change can happen when we get to the nerve of where the issues are for each of these different segments that we have mapped out as part of our program. So, I would just like to say that in many ways, the building blocks for addressing anemia are already in place through our programs at the national level, at the state level. But strengthening these behavioral dimensions through, let's say, the steps to behavior change and using more psychographic profiling can actually help translate awareness into actual behavior change. I'm here.